Hi, I'm Hunter from that hashtag show, and I'm here with the two stars of Destroy All Neighbors, the director of Destroy All Neighbors, which is coming out on Shudder. It is not to fanboy out too much about the movie, but it is a tremendous horror comedy that you need to see. And so we're here with Jonah Ray Rodrigues, Alex Winter, and Josh Forbes. And my first question is for all of you, since we're doing this all in sort of a forum style here. How did you guys find your way to this project and what drew you to it?
I'll jump in. So initially, I was just hanging out with my buddy Charlie Piper, and we were both complaining about our neighbors. I was living in like East Hollywood, Little Armenia at the time, and I had a neighbor who would just bang on the wall, and he would be drunk in the middle of the hallway, just trying to like jam his key into his door. He was just crazy. And then Charlie's like, "Oh, really? Well, let me do you one more." And he started telling me about his neighbor, and and I would tell him, I'm like, I'm just lay in bed thinking about like what I want to do to this guy. I just wanted to like kill him. And so instead of actually killing him, we decided to turn it into a movie. And I don't know, we developed the script for a long time, and then we brought it to our buddy Mike Benner, who did a really great pass on it, and really turned it into you know a comedy. And then I begged Jonah to get on board, and then you know took it from there.
Yeah, it's like when Josh showed me he's like, hey, I'm kind of developed this movie, do you want to, it's kind of a mix of this and that, and like it was like you said delicatessen and Evil Dead, and I was like, well, sight unseen, I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I like Josh's stuff. I like his music videos a lot, and he was a good dude. So I was kind of like confident. We've like I knew we had a lot in common, and so yeah. Then I came on, and we kind of started tweaking it here and there, and then I had become friends with Alex, and I mentioned to Josh, I was like, did you see Bill and Ted 3? Like, I mean, he's back in prosthetics. We got to get him while he's back in there, back in the chairs. And so, I approached Alex about it, and he said, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very fun and sort of collective type movie, in the sense that once the train leaves the station, it's like you need everyone on board to have, understanding of what Josh's vision was, and a kind of a similar taste in movies, and the tone is really specific with these kind of films. So you kind of need everybody on board to be down with the tone, and that's what can make making a film like this a lot of fun, because movies are very hard, and movies like this are crazy ambitious. That's what's great about them, but also very hard. And that's what was so much fun, was we had a gang that was really down to get it done and have a good time, and knew what it was that we were making.
That's putting it lightly. It looks like this movie was just an absolute ball to film, but also very difficult, with Jonah getting thrown up on, Alex, I'm assuming, being in the makeup chair for, hours upon end. With that, what was the hardest scene for all three of you to film, or something that was particularly difficult about the production?
I mean, all the apartment stuff. We had a practical apartment set, but we really didn't have any flyaway walls, so we were really crammed in there. So anything in William's apartment or Vlad's apartment in the hallway were brutal, because it was also, we were in a warehouse. We built the sets in a warehouse downtown South LA, and it was in the middle of summer, and it was 100-degree days outside, and so this place was just baking, and it was just, we all were so manic, and everyone was sweaty, everyone smelled. It was just like
it kind of fit the vibe of the film, though, because
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know it, like, it really, I think, ended up helping us out, like with just like having it feel gross. So that's the thing, we wanted it to just kind of feel like an old Henenlotter, like basket case, or brain damage, like just this, like just this, like, uncomfortable, it's like, you don't get to see that too much. Everything's a little clean these days, I think. The only thing I can think of that recently pulled that off was Kuso, that Flying Lotus movie, where it's just like everyone's kind of just like, just looks just feels uncomfortable and gross. And I think that's, like, in general, those scenes were super super hard, and like the scene with the pig was also like
Oh,
a
yeah.
real
Animal, animals,
Just-
animals, animals.
Yeah.
Never.
And
I
it's like,
think-
a pig, when they're just like a little upset, they don't just go, rare. Then it's not like a cat getting like moved to the side. They make a blood curdling scream, like
Horrifying.
you just like tried to strangle it. And like, and it was the pig's name was Kosher, and it was such a
course.
diva, such a diva.
Yeah. I think for me there was a moment where Alex had to like spit onto Jonah, like this blood or whatever, and it was one of these things where it's like trying to map out the continuity in my head while my brain was being scrambled by the 200-degree heat or whatever. It was just like, because it's this puzzle of like, okay, well, if we get this angle and then it's going here, then we get here, then oh, but his shirt will still be gross. And
Yeah, the continuity of the blood is like ridiculously complicated. And, like,
yeah,
and having to like scrub my face, get it again, go scrub my face, get it again.
Yeah, but we got through it.
So this is a question for all three of you. Just what inspired your performance in the film? And then for Josh, what inspired your directing? Like, what were some of the influences here? Obviously, it feels a little bit like a Dead Alive sort of vibe, but are there any other influences that people might not think of that come to mind for you?
I mean, the way I've been describing it is just like everything I love kind of all crammed into one spot. But yeah, I mean, it's like I think I was just mentioning earlier, how much I love the Mighty Boosh and the color of that, or Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like Amelie or Delicatessen, that sort of stuff. But then also, like Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant, that sort of stuff, Repulsion, even like also one that I haven't even talked about is like there's this indie movie called In a World that's like about the world of voiceover actors. Like I remember there's kind of like a subgenre of like independent movies shot in LA that have an LA feel. And that was when we were working on the script, that was kind of in the back of my head. I think ultimately the movie feels not specific to LA, which I think is better for it, but it was definitely that like, okay, like what are things that are in movies that that don't cost a lot of money, that still look good? Like how do we solve this puzzle? I don't know if that answers your question, but
that answers it perfectly.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many influences, going back like to Josh's point to like early noirs about buildings and lodgers, and there's The Lodger, which I love. There's The Stranger on the Third Floor, which I love. There's a whole history of films about this kind of interrelationship between a character who's maybe losing his mind and troublesome neighbors that may or may not be helping that process along. And so I love that whole genre of film, and then being able to add into it this, by way of Jonah, and then the ensemble that sort of grew up around it, and my own background, like to build into that this sort of that's why I love Josh's reference of Mighty Boosh, and and anything that brass eye, anything that sort of has come up in UK improv, which I think is the best right now. This sort of very kind of deranged, but somehow grounded comedy. I mean, to me, the film is a comedy. I know it has horror elements, and it should, and that's great. But there are Python sketches that have horror elements, right? And to me, this is much more simpatico with that type of comedy than sort of the rules and tropes of horror. And that was sort of what interested me about Vlad, was playing this guy who's real, but then can really get very insane, but insane the way a human would, not a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Another reference I'll rep here is Freaked. Like just
I
knowing.
didn't even notice you had that shirt on.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've caught that today. That's hilarious.
But knowing that Alex, made that movie, it's like I immediately. It's like, oh, this guy gets it. Like, it's sort of the Mad Magazine, version of horror, not you know, I don't know, whatever, paranormal activity or something. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, this guy's nerds out on the same stuff that I nerd out on, you know.
Oh, I guess like for William, like I thought, because I like, you know, I wanted William to be grounded. And you know, it was interesting because Josh and I talked a lot about this, because it's like William's whole thing is that he's passive, and that doesn't make for a really great protagonist like in a movie, because like, you know, where's the forward momentum come from? So I thought a lot about Luke Wilson in Idiocracy. Just this like this guy that just like would rather not. I think the movie Bartleby with Crispin Glover, where it's like he just like, you know, the whole thing is propelled by this guy that doesn't want to do the things he needs to do. And it's this, you know, that's a real kind of interesting thing about like, there's, you know, there's something in your life where it's like, if you're going to put it off, there are going to be now extraneous circumstances that will now push you into making sure that change or that forward motion happens. And it's like, it's never going to be good. If you don't do it yourself, it's always going to, it's a, you know, like, Vlad dying is the only way that William ended up, you know, being able to finish his album, and like it shouldn't have worked out that way. And that's kind of so I pulled a lot from people that just are, you know, a non like you're conflict adverse, and you know, stuff like that.
I feel like there's a ton of like Tom Hanks.
Oh sure, yeah, Tom Hanks in The Burbs.
The Burbs, yeah.
I did like, I think there's like, I can't remember if you made it in the movie, but there was like one take I did where I yelled something, and I was like that sounded so much like Tom Hanks.
But I mean, I'm going to take this moment to just to just sing from the rooftops about both their performances, but especially Jonah, like, because I haven't seen him do this before. We haven't seen, you know, I feel like there was a lot of taking it on faith, where I was like, you know, I had seen Hidden America, and I had listened to thousands of hours of you and podcasts, and like, I feel like I had a really good handle on you and who you are and the things you like and like your range, but it was like, it was a bit of a you know, I don't want to say risk, but it was just like, you know,
I wouldn't have got it if you made me audition, you know. Like it's like that's how my acting career works. It's like
yeah.
I'll do a good job once I get there, but like it's like it's always, it has to be based off of faith from someone.
But I just knew from conversations we've had and stuff, it's like, yeah, like you're the, you know, we got to the point where it's like you're the only person who could do this, and we sort of built the movie around Jonah's sensibilities, and then obviously when Alex came in, we built it around you know, his approach to Vlad and stuff. But I don't know, I feel
very sweet of you. Thank you,
because you go through so many, like it's almost effortless. If you know, you look at the movie, it's like if you really mapped it, it's like, you know, you go from being super depressed to angry to funny to in love. It's like,
yeah, I mean that's kind of, you know, that's my daily life. It's all those emotions, like every minute of the day, you know, a million
like
different people from one day to the next, to quote Bittersweet Symphony.
So we're getting the 2-minute warning here, or whatever the on the interview. As much as I would love, I could talk to this movie with you guys for hours. But the one thing that struck me from the film was really the ending. And the entire time you're watching it and you're expecting and going through, and you're like, oh, cool, we're going to get a final confrontation between William and Vlad here. And then the movie just turns from that and gives this, as a struggling creative, as all of everybody who's probably watching this, a struggling creative, as you guys have been struggling creatives, this ending that is so poignant and touching, that where he just simply it's like Vlad is the embodiment of all the haters and all the people doubting you, and he just goes, so it'll find its place. People, you know, people will find, the people who love it will find it. And I just want to ask you guys, like, how did you get to that point, and what does that ending mean to you guys as creatives?
By being in the entertainment industry for decades and decades and decades. Not everyone will get it, but the right ones will.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, that thing, you're the only one that can break your chains. You know, it's just, it's a real, like, you know, both Josh and I, you know, struggle with, like, you know, the symptoms of ADHD, where it's like it's like you're self-aware, but also not self-aware about like what gets in your way and what fucks you up. And you know, like, I want this thing, and then you just don't know how to do it, and you are always looking for some kind of parental figure, some kind of act of God to kind of make it happen for you. And you realize it's like if you just stop worrying about other people, if you just stop people pleasing, if you just go and do the thing that's going to make you happy, you in turn will make others happy. And that's just kind of like, it's like from the process of making stuff, you kind of have to have that, you know. It's like we all have friends that like you know, we started out with that become like literal, like, you know, like superstars, billionaires, like, you know, it's not billionaires, but like, you know, millionaires. But like, it's like, and you kind of realize that it's like, if you don't enjoy the process of it, and if you are killing yourself while making it, then when it's over, you're not going to feel any better. It's about the journey, not the destination. Fuck. Sorry.
No, but that's, I mean, the process of him making the album like perfectly mirrored us making the movie itself. And you know, I would definitely have those days where I'm like, I mean, even up till recently when we were still editing and everything, it was just like, this movie is never going to end. I'm never going to finish. You know, or the idea of pinning all your hopes on like, oh, well, once it's done, then I can be happy.
Once this, then that. And that's like a terrible kind of thing. It's like, oh, once I get this, then this will happen. And that's not really the case. Like, you know, I've had so many things in my career where I was like, oh, once I get on, you know, like this show, I'll like, that's when things will start cooking. Or once this happens, things will start going. And you have like, you stop appreciating the stuff. And, you know, it's a bittersweet ending, of course, because it's like, you know, yes, he did end up like making the album and it was a success, but at what cost?
Right.
You know, his entire life.
Yeah.
So Destroy All Neighbors releases on Shudder on January 12th, and I cannot recommend it enough for people who like, even tolerate horror movies, because it isn't exactly that horror, but it's a horror comedy about creativeness and finding yourself and all of that. So thank you to Jonah, thank you to Alex, thank you to Josh, thank you to Shudder, IFC Films, everybody for this interview, and have a great day, guys.
Thanks so
Good to
much.
talk to you, Hunter. Yeah,
Thank
really
you.
awesome.